Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Many of us will agree that one ingredient for business success comes from our ability to have a great team. So the question is, how do we search for a great team? Is there any science to this? In particular, when we aspire to be an inclusive organisation where we try to be diverse when selecting our future team members. Today, my co-host, CEO of Peerlight, Gus Arianto, and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Yasser Zaki, CEO of Tender Loving Care Disability Services. Yasser is a leader who believes that diversification in business can boost success, especially inclusivity for people with a disability. Welcome to the show, Yasser.
Thank you. And thanks for having me today.
Hello, Yasser. Thank you for donating your time for Leader Talk. We appreciate your time. We know that you are in Dubai, early in the morning. So once again, thank you for coming to our show.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Yasser. And Yasser, as we do with all our guests, we ask everyone two fun questions. So we have two that we've prepared for you. And the first one is, if you could invite anyone to dinner, anyone at all, one person, who would it be and why?
I would invite Eric Schmidt, who was the ex-CEO of Google. I've had the pleasure of meeting with him before, and I've learned a lot from him. So a couple of the hints he gave me, I used, and he's a brilliant man. So I would do that again, definitely.
Wow, fantastic.
Fantastic. That would make for some interesting conversation, right?
Yes, definitely.
And the other one is, what did you want to be when you grow up? What was the job that you wanted to have?
Initially, I wanted to be a pilot, to be honest, but never really gone down that road. I love traveling, and I thought being a pilot would be quite a cool thing when I was a kid. But then, things shifted a little bit for me, and I started to become more interested in business as I graduated from university. So I changed it a little bit from the mindset.
Have you ever tried, doing the initial courses on flying and things like that?
No, not at all. I did the simulation things and stuff like that. But no, I haven't. I pursued engineering initially. Then I finished and I shifted into social work by choice, and that's why I'm in the disability sector. So
Wow.
never did a pilot thing. I travel a lot though.
And is that travel for hobby or for work, or both?
Both. I do like traveling.
Yes, fantastic.
That's great. And Yasser, I only gave a brief introduction at the beginning. So we're hoping you can tell all our listeners and us as well a little bit more about yourself and your businesses, because it's not just one business that you own.
No, we're made of 6 different businesses. They mainly evolved around people with disability, but they offer outside of the disability sector. So they're not government funded. All of them are mainly self-sustainable businesses generating their own revenues, except with one entity that is relying a lot on the government funding. We provide a broad range of services, including in-home support, day programs, accommodation services, allied health professionals, and really very, very broad range of services. But the most important part of what we do is that we generated an ecosystem for servicing and supporting people with disability. And through the ecosystem, we've been able to generate new opportunities that doesn't have to put pressure on the government, and at the same time opens opportunity for people with disabilities. So it meets our vision and our mission. And then it gives us a lot more control to be able to be unique in the market. And that's why we have quite a number of entities doing various different things with different managers that are running sort of at a professional level. So, yeah.
And Yasser, from our last chat, it was really clear that you're very focused on diversification in business, even from the point of view of hiring and inclusiveness of people with disabilities. And you just mentioned it now. Where did this passion come from? Because it's not something, passions come from everywhere. Just curious to know, where did your passion come from?
Look, I like to do a lot of risk management exercises. It's a very common practice that I do. I do quite regularly. And when I look at business and the shift in the world over the last 15 years, you'll find that there's a lot of a bit less predictability with the fast movement of new technologies coming up all the time. New skills are required in business all the time. Restructuring in a business is a key point of success. All these things, when you put it together, you find that if your business is not innovative enough and thinking always about those changes, you will face challenge. And the pandemic had proven that very clearly, that any business that had only one focus, and if the pandemic impacted them, like hospitality, hotels, a lot of those services, including disability services, got impacted quite heavily. At the moment we hear about the shortage of staff, people having COVID, they have to isolate. Who works as a replacement? People work as a replacement, they end up with the COVID. What happens? We work with vulnerable people as well, so you don't want to pass sickness to them. But if they are sick, you can't just walk away. I mean, if you have COVID, you don't want to walk in a hospital where a nurse says, "Sorry, I can't help you." And so putting all that together generates a massive risk to any business, because you just can't put all your eggs in one basket. And being able to diversify and putting a lot of effort in there and putting some innovation hats and listening to people that have done that before, it's quite important, because you actually manage the risk. So even if one side of your business gets affected, then you should be able to survive with the other part, at least to get to the other end.
And yes, so can I ask on that, from the perspective of business, the concept of diversity in the business, to make sure that your core business is not impacted easily. For example, if you are running hospitality, a restaurant, you might want to think another services that you can offer, whether it's something like, if you have a restaurant, you also have an online takeaway, for example. But can I use the word but? The cost to actually making a diversity in business, can be uh, can be high. So, what's your message to our audience that really want to diverse their business, to have options, uh, but they also in challenge right now with costs? How should we handle this part?
Look, initially you want to plan. So the best action is when you do it when you're not under pressure, correct? So the more you put effort into planning prior to the pandemic, so prior, when I remember when we did our strategic plan before COVID, and we did a SWOT analysis. There's few tools, but we commonly use the SWOT analysis in our strategic planning. And one of the threats we put is diseases. Then we had a contingency plan of what happens if a disease hits the world. And what happens if the world shuts down because of a virus? And so we had all this in place with the plan that we literally, when the COVID hit, I just sent an email to our risk team and I said, please trigger that. So all our quality team and compliance team straight away triggered it. It was very quickly turned around for us to adjust our ways of doing things. And literally, if the word agility means anything, it is now the time to actually be able to adjust. And if the more the business is agile and maneuver around issues, you will find that you're ahead. And if you're ahead, pandemics like this are a blessing to businesses if they had a plan in place. I mean, how many businesses that were flexible enough that have really done really well around the pandemic time? And I know a lot of those businesses. And on the other side, some businesses that didn't plan that far ahead and didn't have contingency plans with risk management framework, they struggled. So
Yes.
it's a very clear message that the more you put planning and your thinking ahead of time, the more you start shaping your business to be resilient enough to resist any of those changes and all these unknowns, um, the more chance you have to actually grow within a pandemic rather than shrink.
Yeah. So can I just make sure that what you're saying is I understand it correctly? What you're saying, responding to my question of how do we actually focus on the diversified our business when costs are one of the factor, and you said to us, hey, before you making any movement, at the very least you do the planning. So you don't not necessarily open a branch of another business, but what you're saying is never be lazy in plan, because when something hit, you don't actually lose your core because you have a plan. For example, if you are a restaurant and for the past 6 months before the pandemic, which is 2 years ago, you already thinking about this happen, and you might have a takeaway online system which is not expensive at all probably to set up, because everything is now on the internet. You might actually growing your business throughout the time. Okay, that's a fantastic message there.
Yeah, definitely. And before we go on with the questions, yes, I last week when we spoke, you mentioned a story about a person that you worked with, if I'm correct, who couldn't miss one delivery. He was so diligent with his work, and I was really touched with this story. It was a really big eye opener for me, and I think it has a really beautiful message that I was hoping you could share that story with everyone, because it really sets the scene for everything else that we're
Yes.
going to be discussing, if that's okay.
It's actually a story that changed. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Without mentioning names, I can definitely tell the story. It's a story that had a massive impact on me personally in the way I do businesses. And as you may know, I actually till today ask my team to put me on rosters with our participants, and I go out with clients and support them every now and again. And I do that completely by choice. I like to get heavily involved because if I take decisions at the high up end without actually being part of um, the ground level in the business itself, I will lose touch with it. And one of the things that I've done a while back, and this story goes a few years back, is I went on a paper run with a person with autism. And it's a work experience that the guys would take papers, go around like a suburb, and will just distribute the papers and get paid at the end of the day for it. So it's an employment pathway for people with disability. So I went out for the walk, and we started distributing the papers, finished everything except one house. So we ran out of papers to one house. So the participant said we need to go back and actually pick the one paper and deliver it. And it was a fair bit of a walk. We did it only walking. So to be honest, I said, well, it's only one house. Most people don't really read it. Next week we'll be here. We'll just give him next week's one. And the participant completely refused. He said, no, we're supposed to deliver the whole suburb. We'll deliver the whole suburb. So I said, okay, we'll do that. So we walked all the way back, picked up the one newspaper, walked to deliver, and then head. And in my head, I thought, okay, would I have done that? I can tell you now, probably not. I would have underestimated the value of it's just a one newspaper, it's just a one house. People are not going to die for it. While it's a fair bit of a walk, I'll just do it next week. But the person with disability had a completely different view. I had a task to do. I have to finish that task. There's no questions about it. There was no give and take. It was the task, it was the job. So we did it. And ever since, I never do anything half done. It doesn't matter the impact and the outcome of it. If I'm supposed to do a task, I complete it from A to Z. And ever since I actually been applying that model in everything I do. If I have something at hand, I will not stop until it's done. It's just that simple. And it really changed the way I perceive things and changed the way I recruit people with disability as well. So I end up changing my focus in, okay, so I want an employee that will deliver to the last bit and complete the task, or an employee that will say, look, it's not a big deal, it's just a one piece. So it completely shifted my approach to the whole thing, to be honest.
I found that story. I actually mentioned this story to few of my colleagues at work because I found it really opening my eyes from that lens. Like how many people in an organization uh, take a shortcut in the spirit of saying that why do more if we can do less. Yet that's actually mainly an excuse many times when we see it, versus this person who actually, when you look at it as a proper business, which is a proper business, you're delivering services by providing fiber to the houses. That one house could be the house that put a complaint. That one house could be the house that actually become unhappy and put it on social media and then have impact after impact the organization. Yet this one person choose to walk and come back. And I found it, wow, what a simple story. The advantage of working with disability and the benefit back to the organization. Now, to follow that question though, can you just come back so the audience have the same alignment when we talk about disability? I don't want to have a mistake in describing the disability that we talk about here. Yeah, so do you mind to just describe what are we talking about? Because disability come in a different look and a different things. I just want to make sure that we are all aligned with disability from the service that your organization or your understanding. So we're talking the same thing.
Look, we initially started from, if we talk about government funding point of view, there is criteria for people that will receive those kind of funding, and it was
Yeah.
limited to certain things. However, with our approach, we opened it up a lot more than just the government funding, which meant we can welcome people with disabilities that are not particularly funded for one reason or another. Um, Disability comes in different forms, and it doesn't always, um, it's not always a visual disability. Sometimes it's not, like psychosocial disability or mental health, which is 1 in 3 people have mental health. So you definitely have someone in your company probably with some sort of mental health challenge. You might be just good at hiding. Um, Reality speaking is we all have some sort of a disability, and sometimes we don't understand that, or we don't even think about it. And that disability can be not being able to do something. I mean, I can't draw. I love art. If you come to my house, there's a lot of beautiful artistic pieces. I cannot draw. It's that simple. So that's a disability that I have. While I've worked with people with disability that they are amazing at drawing. Actually, one of them sells their paintings from $5,000 to $10,000 in exhibitions. It's how good it is. So what I'm trying to say is we need to stop looking at people's disability and look at their abilities. You have a
Yeah.
business need, and when you interview someone for your business need, you look at what they can offer your business, and you don't particularly look at what they cannot offer. Right? So we need to stop the mindset of, okay, person with disability cannot do this and that. Let's look for what they can do. And if what they can do matches what my business needs, then why wouldn't you recruit them? I really don't get it. If they don't, then they're like everybody else. You don't hire them. It's a skills-based recruitment, like what you do with everybody. Just the equal opportunities is where we fail sometimes. You get someone with a disability, and you automatically just don't hire them because they have a disability, or you don't even think about it. I mean, you know how many businesses I walked in, they don't even have access to people with disability in this day and age. That's really, and people don't do it deliberately. I can't say they're not hiring people, or just don't think about it. It is
Yeah.
not part of the planning of the business. As for
Yeah.
me, for example, I would never have an office that does not have disability access. It's just not part of what we do. And I'm talking about worldwide. We have offices internationally, and even education around disability is even worse than what we have in Australia. Yet I'm still focused on the same principles. If I am going to have an office somewhere or a location somewhere, if it doesn't have disability access, I either make it or walk away.
Yeah.
So it's just something to think about. And let me tell you, we have almost 5 million people with disability in the country, Gus.
Yeah.
So if you don't see that as a potential business for you, you've got a problem, right?
Yeah.
It's a massive, and it's a targeted audience. So you know exactly where to look. You know what you need to offer, and all you have to do is put a bit of an effort to educate yourself about disability.
Yeah.
I think it's worth it.
Yeah. Yes, can I be a devil advocate here? I really want to represent, and I could be wrong, but in the world of a business, this topic, while it's really good and interesting and kind and whatever we want to say, because I really love this topic, but majority, many organizations, like what you said before, forget about talking about equality and giving opportunity. Officers with no access to disability still out there right now, even in the country like Australia. So my question is like this: uh, what can we do uh, to change the perception of people towards disability, uh, people out there? Because I love what you say. Stop looking at stop looking at disability and focus on ability. Yet, as an organization, for example, the minute, and I could be wrong here, the minute I interview someone with disability and the person unable to do the job, I will be quite worried to say you cannot do the job, because I could be seen as not giving equal opportunity. Like we are become exposed. So what's your message to businesses that want to try but scared, want to help but worry
Look, I think
on the process?
yes. So look, I think first thing is we need to educate ourselves about. I mean, you can't blame a person for. I mean, I'll give you an example. If you work with computers, but you're not actually, you can't work with computers. You can't particularly blame the computer for it. If you haven't gone and learned how to use a computer, you just won't know how to use it, correct? And it's the same for us as employers. If we want to hire people with disability and start being inclusive and actually leverage of their strong abilities in a lot of areas, then we need to educate ourselves so we can use that properly and work with it properly and contribute. From an investment point of view, I just want to give you this. A common return of investment is 6 to 10%. Right? So if you invest in something, if you're returning 6 to 10%, you're in a good shape. Impact investment, which is the new topic of the world, that all businesses are heading towards impact investment. The return is averaging now between 15 to 25%. So you're actually almost doubling your return of investment by just providing social impact approach and welcoming people from vulnerable communities and vulnerable backgrounds into your business. And we've seen a lot of businesses that go open foundations and non-for-profits, and and I can give you numerous amounts of examples, and that is because from an investment it returns, it does contribute back. And if your business that is doing well, I think you have a level of obligation to give back to the community that is actually supporting you to survive. And it's a cycle that if we all play our part in, it will become a very beautiful world out there. Okay, so back to your question. If I keep thinking about I'm going to be discriminating against the person, follow a criteria, have a structure, embed it into your policies and procedures, and you have a criteria of employment, right? It's equal opportunity. You have to meet 1, 2, 3, 4 selection criteria in my interview, and these are the experiences that I'm expecting. This is the outcomes that I'm expecting, and if you meet those needs, then you get the job, like everybody else. And if you don't, for other reason, maybe you need to go get more training and come back for next round of interviews. So it's just it is this the school of thinking of people with disability are different is where the problem is. We need to change that. It's not about being different. We're all different. So
Yes.
what's the issue there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's lovely. Mhm.
It's a great topic, Yasser. And for all those people that are listening at the moment and they're going, everything Yasser's saying is brilliant. I also want to start, building a diverse and inclusive team, equal employment opportunity and everything. Where do they start? That is the question. Like, how do they start building this inclusive team? Is there a method? Is there someone they get in touch with?
There is plenty. So the good thing is the government has a very, very strong focus on employment. I mean, the government don't want to just fund someone that is able to work and earn their own living and just sit down and rely on the government, right? It's the funding is generally designed to help people live as independently as possible. And that includes gaining employment, skills development, things like that. So there's plenty of government initiatives that you can tap into. I mean, there's which Disability Employment Services. It's a Commonwealth funded services. And not only that, you get a person with disability. You get a subsidy for a period of time for their wages. So you can like the concept of try before you buy kind of thing. You get a business coach that would go out with the person on a regular basis and to make sure they succeed in that business. And not only that, they can in some cases, they offer you resources. If you need a computer for the person, if I mean, one of our receptionists is a person with visual impairment, you know. This visual impairment requires certain equipment, like specific computers, phones, things like that, equipment to help the person do the job well. And this providers provided this equipment for the person. So it's not even a business cost. The government is happy to contribute to the success of that employment. You just need to tap into it and welcoming and be open to it. But there's plenty of initiatives.
I have no doubt that our listeners are learning so much from this, right, Gus?
Yeah.
Even
I think
I definitely am.
yeah, I definitely am. I think organization, even through this talk, I can't help to open my mind as well further to what's the possibilities. And it's funny, that's why people need to listen to Yasser, because unless you talk to the expert that is actually been in the business like this, you only speculating the difficulties of doing this, yet the impact through the people, through the purpose of the organization, through the it's massive, right? Like, I mean, it's by nature people want to help people. So I believe that though. I believe that by majority of the people want to help people, and organization doing this can make a lot of impact, despite the challenges. And Yasser just said, hey, government can give you support. Hey, the people that you actually employ will probably do more because they understand their own disabilities. And that's just something that I think people never think about.
And we need to deal with people with disability like we do with everybody else. I
Yes.
remember a while back, had coffee with one of our participants and sitting down having a chat, and they walked up to order coffee. And the coffee shop lady, lovely lady, she goes, "Hi, sweetie, how you going? What would you like?" And I'm thinking, you're talking to a 25-year-old adult. And okay, the person intended really well, and I'm sure of it. And they were very pleasant, very lovely. But what are we promoting, correct? So it's that level of education that we need to have. I don't think she had any bad intention. She just didn't know any better. Why? I mean, think about it, Gus. If you go get ordering a coffee and someone say, "Hi, Gus, how are you, sweetie?" What would be running in your head? Like, seriously?
Yeah.
It's the same concept. We need to be open to dealing with people with disability like we do with everybody else, and not pin him as people with disability and not exclude them from anything, because they are part of our community and they are a very strong part of our community. They contribute, they have voting rights, they go and do activities, they contribute to the economy, they buy coffees, food, drinks, outings, they pay tax if they're working. So they contribute like you and I. So they shouldn't be treated any less. And I'm not saying that people deliberately do it, don't get me wrong. It's more that people are unaware. But we need to create awareness. And that's why this kind of talks, and you guys are doing it just by having this conversation with me and being able to just tell people.
Yeah.
Be open to it.
Yeah, you have a very strong message, Yasser, and we're definitely trying to get it out there because it is a very important one, like you said. But I am curious to know, Yasser, what would be the most surprising benefit that employers may not realize from hiring people with a disability for their workplace?
To be honest, my personal experience, you get a lot of accuracy if you train them right, and you get the job done. You just have to train them right. You have to put that little bit of effort, and it starts with educating yourself. And I'm more than happy to contribute to that. So if there's any organization that is interested, I can get my team to go out there and do an awareness talk to their team, and just explain about certain things and how to deal with a person with disability in different contexts. And focus on the abilities of that person and how to actually focus on it. Even if someone has an interview, we're happy to help with some of the interviews to train people on how to deal with it. Because an interview with a person with disability might need to look slightly different to be able to identify the skills you're looking for.
Sorry, yes. So can I just confirm again? So your business, TLC Disability Services, you providing it's like am I right to simplify this by saying it's like a recruitment agency with access to excellent capability through disability groups that you can offer to businesses? Do you do this service as well?
No, we don't do it in that context. No. So the reason I'm heavily advocating for it because I believe in it, and it's a
Okay.
competitive a business that we run. There's providers, it's different type of service delivery. What we do is we do skills development programs. So we might have a person with disability that would like to work and or just left school. We call it school leavers program, and the person has 2 years to learn some sort of a skill to prepare them for employment. So we start working with them, helping them to write resumes, learn maybe certain computer skills, administration skills, packaging, WHS, that kind of stuff. And if the person really gets into it and passes, we start helping them looking for work that matches those skills that they acquired. So this is where we're involved. What we've done in an employment space, and that's an initiative completely driven by the passion of employing people with disability. We thought, okay, as a business, we're quite a broad range of service delivery, and we're very smart and very tactical with how we do that because we deliver quality and we deliver outcomes. And when we looked at what's missing, there was two things mainly missing. One is education for people with disability, and two was employment at a very unique way of doing it. And we spoke briefly last time we met about the blue ocean strategy mindset. So we wanted to be unique and we wanted to have a point of difference. Now, in terms of the school, we're in negotiations with the government now, trying to get a crown land and work on a concept that hasn't been done before. And it's a bit of a process. It will take its time, but I won't stop until I get it done, to be honest. But we'll have the time. We'll just get it done. In terms of employment, we established an entity completely non-government funded, self-sustainable, that we import feta cheese. So we went overseas, we got a very unique type of feta cheese. Went through, it took us a year and a half to get the approval just to be able to import it here. And we had a target of 70% employment for people with disability in this entity. Not only that, they paid at award rate payments, like you and I get paid, completely non-funded by the government, completely non-subsidized by the government. Now you're going to tell me, why did you go and import cheese? Now, again, this is the concept of diversification and finding a source of revenue. If I'm going to pay or if I'm going to offer an open employment for a person with disability, I need to have a sustainable business that generates profits, because the money has to come from somewhere. The revenue has to come from somewhere to cater for the needs of the business in general, including wages, training, risk management, all that kind of stuff. So that initiative of getting cheese was, we're hitting in a pandemic. People might stop a lot of things. They're definitely not going to stop food. So we put our thinking hat from a purely business perspective with a target of changing the world, of employing 70% of people with disability and having control over that. So now if we have someone in the skills development program that has an opportunity, we can actually help them to complete the pathway and gain employment without having to put pressure on the government or rely on government funding. We get zero government funding for that initiative.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers some of the questions you've had about how businesses would do it and the innovation side and have thinking outside of the box. We're not a cheese company. I have never had an intention of particularly selling cheese, all right? But being able to offer people with disability an opportunity for employment was a passion that drove me to actually find a creative and innovative way of doing it. And business is doing amazing, by the way, and it's very heavily driven by people with disability.
How do you
Right.
attract? How do you attract? I try to reflect. Been in the business for a long, long time. Many opportunity of employing people. I can't remember once, and this could be our own policy as a business. So my question is, how do you attract a great people? People, how do I put it? I don't know. Sounds wrong, but how do you attract a great talent from a disability community? Because you know, maybe there's many businesses that is actually equally open, but they just don't have that community openly applying and openly want to be part of this. Like, how do we attract this talent, pool of talent?
I know what you're saying, Gus. And just because thinking you don't put it in the job ad, you're not specifically
Yeah.
targeting.
So if we
How
wanna,
do you actually get it? It's a great question.
yeah, because
Amazing question. Look, the principle is we don't want to particularly target people with disability versus people not with disability. Right?
yes,
It's an open community. We're all one
correct.
community. It's that simple, right? What we need to do is we put the job there and welcome if someone with disability applies for it. That's the first step. It's the simplest and easiest step. Now, if you wanted to do a specific contribution back to the community by actually targeting recruitment for people with disability and become an inclusive business, talk to these providers and talk to us. We're happy to support the guys through and connect. We have a lot of contacts in that. And they will be able to actually sit with you and say, okay, what are your business needs? You say, I want to 1, 2, 3, 4. I need to know exactly what you want in your business in general.
Yeah.
They will find you the right person. And not only that, they will support that person until they succeed. So,
Yeah.
and if they don't succeed, you will, as any other employee, say, sorry, it's not working out.
Yeah.
And I can give you numerous examples that we will have people who's to be working in our organization. And I can tell you stories. And if you go on our Facebook page, is one of the videos of the story of a participant that was completely at home, completely marginalized, did not want to leave home, depressed because he couldn't find work. And he never saw himself as a person with disability. He didn't see himself as different. He wanted to be with the greater community. And I was passing by our customer care manager's office and he was talking. We're trying to convince him to join our programs. And he goes, I don't want to be just receiving programs. I want to work and no one wants to offer me a job. So I walked back and I said, because I overheard it was just a coincidence. And I said, what happens if I offer you a job? I'll give you 2 months and it's up to you to succeed in it. I'll give you an opportunity for it. This person's still working now 2 years on. So I'm doing an amazing work. Okay. The difference is that we didn't see his disability. We saw that his determination.
His
He
ability.
wants to work. Okay, let's do it. But he had to put the effort in. When we launched in Dubai, we did it to be able to meet sort of different standards. We had to apply the Australian standards and the UAE standards, which they actually quite sophisticated, both of them in different ways. But in the UAE and Dubai, they don't call people with disability. They don't use that terminology. They use it as people with determination. And I really like that.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
it's about
Wow,
how
that's
determined
different.
you are, right?
People.
If you have an employee that is determined, I mean, how successful do they get in your business? Determination is a key to success. If you want to do something, I was talking about the school, and my word is, I'm going to get it done. That's determination. I'm very determined. I know what I want, and I'm not going to stop until I get it. That's exactly the example that I gave. That person just wanted a job, and they succeeded. And literally, they succeeded because they were good at it. There's no favors. I don't do favors for people at employment. You get paid to do a job, do it well, disregarding if you have a disability or not.
That's great. And Yasa, with all your experience, what do you think has changed the most in the disability sector in Australia over the years? Has it changed significantly? Like, I'm thinking, you mentioned people with determination. It's such a different way of looking at it. How
Yes.
much has it changed in Australia? Are we still kind of same? Are we kind of getting towards the angle of, changing the terminology or just anything in general?
Um, Look, I'm not always politically correct, all right? So I gotta say it as it is. We are way behind.
Yeah.
Now, we're ahead of a lot of countries in the world. Don't get me wrong. We're trying. There's a lot of effort. Government is putting a lot of support. Some people might agree, others might not agree. It's a very personal perspective, but seeing the world, Australia is better than a lot of places. If you have a disability, you want to be in Australia. Let's face it. However, we're still very immature. We still have a long way to go. And I don't think, even though there tends to be a lot of pointing to the government, which they do have a responsibility and they have to play a role, but I think the community have a bigger role in that space because we're not welcoming as well. Okay. And if we have 1 in 5 people with disability, that's a lot of people that if we marginalizing or ignoring, it's a problem. Now, language, look, there's a lot of debates. I mean, I've been in the industry for quite some time, and I studied social work. I did a lot of education, master's, PhD, and my research, by the way, and my thesis was around comparative study between Australia over the years and Egypt, which is my background. So I traveled and did a full research on it, and the shift was amazing in both. Right? One went backwards while it was 10 times ahead. So we had an NDIS similar system in Egypt, for example, in the 40s and the 50s. Now it's not very good. And on the other hand, Australia in the 70s and 80s, they were putting people with disability in institutions and treating them like mad people and completely, in a bad shape. And now we did a massive inclusion approach, a stronger together approach was there's a lot of initiatives the government did, normalization, that kind of stuff, which was amazing. So we are moving forward. The United Nations have put some set of rules, and those set of rules around language, inclusivity, that kind of stuff, Anti-Discrimination Act, and all that kind. Australia did sign for that, and Australia is one of the leading countries in the. It's not about a terminology; it's about an attitude.
Yeah.
Name it whatever you name it, but have the right attitude. I know some people sometimes get involved in the names, and it commonly changed over the years, by the way. We had different words, and, different words got removed from the dictionary at the moment that are not used. We had organizations that would be called Spastic Center or something like that, and change their names in line with the changes, right? So there's a lot of focus on the names, but what's more important than the name to me is the attitude towards disabilities. Are you inclusive in your life? Are you inclusive in your work? Are you inclusive in your home? Are you inclusive in your business? Are you inclusive in your attitudes? That's the concept that I think about.
Yeah. And I can't keep looking at my note here because stop looking at disability but focus on ability. The word itself, like what you said, doesn't matter what the name. We need to look at our attitude towards this. But now, the more I think about it, which is because we are in the session like this, uh, when we call disability, we automatically, subconsciously thinking the whole lot as a human being is disabled. Now, when we think about disability, for example, there's people that might not be able to walk because through accident they lose their legs, yet they are the great artist in drawing, and my business is actually selling painting. So, but yet the word disability itself put a person as a totally, you know, disabled because we focus on the disability, not focus on the ability. Right? Which is you are absolutely
Correct.
right. I mean, I spoke to my wife. I haven't told you, Yasser. So my wife is a teacher for one of the largest disability schools. So she's been doing this, and even then, to be honest, if we say go in to a public restaurant somewhere, and beside us there is people with disability, uh, she will react differently to me as a human being. That's not mean that I react badly, but we as a community, uh, I think we agree with the word, unless you know, you will never love something. And I think through this podcast, we opening something so for people to actually understand that, hey, what we're talking about here is a human being. What we're talking about here is an ability of a person in the community that we actually branded called disability, because that's a terminology that happened in most of the world until I hear that UAE call it people with determination, which is I actually love this. I don't think many people will actually know there is a country that called disabled community people with determination. I mean that's just me. I'm learning myself.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you
And
mentioned it
that's
before,
true.
Yasser. Sorry.
No, no, please, please.
I was going to just add to that. It's spot on what you said, Gus. And Yasser, you mentioned it before. It comes down to education, and that's what I feel like having you here at the moment. You're an eye opener just with that one story that I mentioned that you shared with us last week. It gave me a different perspective on looking at it from a different angle, more on an ability perspective. And just everything you're sharing, I have no doubt, I can see the comments coming through. You are really opening the eyes for the listeners on how you're educating them through this, and something that we need to work together as a community to deal with this. One person can't do it. Yasser can't do it on his own. I'm sure you'd love to do it on your own, but the more people that are touched with this, the more we can do together to pull together.
I want to tell you something very interesting, and that's part of that diversification concept as an advice to businesses. I was talking to a restaurant owner who is actually it's a very known restaurant, so I won't mention names, but I was talking to the owner. Already have a chain, maybe 50 or 60 restaurants around, and I said, have you thought of actually diversifying your approach by maybe offering specific services for people with disability in your restaurant? And he goes, what do you suggest? I said, why don't you train all your staff to do sign language? Okay. Now, can you think how much audience, how much clients you're going to attract that have a hearing impairment? Correct? It's a target market. And all it takes is get a trainer, put a bit of an effort, and all you want is simple sign language. You don't have to go into complex Makaton or Auslan language to have a full conversation. You just need to have a simple sign language the person can place an order. How good is that for a business? I mean, if I have a restaurant, I would not even think twice. I'll promote it. I would heavily promote it. It's inclusive. I'm welcoming clients. I'm meeting people's needs. So I'm getting my business to be disability friendly. And how comfortable you be if you have hearing impairment and you can actually talk with the waiter? Right? It's amazing. Think about it from autism, and that person did actually an autism day where colors are recognized that doesn't intimidate people. Lighting is considered for people with severe people that have seizures or epilepsy. So if you start thinking about how much you can do in that space, can you imagine how many clients for your business you'll attract? Well, that's diversification. It's
Yeah.
diversification of income. Instead of having, hey, I've got nice meals. No, I'm inclusive. I cater for people's disability as well. We have wheelchair access. We have sign language, and we can service any person with disability, even if a person with certain behaviors that communication challenges or things like that. Honestly, from a business point of view, how amazing is that? Correct?
Yeah.
It's unique. It's a blue ocean strategy. It's a point of difference, and that person actually went and did that, and they excelled in business, like literally excelled. It was a change of the revenue streams, and that's what the person told me. So it increased by quite a significant amount. Again, remember there's 5 million people with disability in the country.
And
Okay.
did this
The
particular
government
restaurant,
has an NDIS. Sorry?
I was going to say, did this particular restaurant take on board your feedback without mentioning any names?
Yeah, they've done it. So they
Oh,
have an autism day every week. So that's an autism friendly day, promoted completely. half their team sign language. They have to actually, part of the criteria of recruitment is to learn sign language. They pay for their courses and they get them to know basic sign language like thank you, what would you like to order, that kind of stuff. Um, and also the menu became more visual, so they start visualizing the menu so people that can't read or have hearing impairment to do it. And also in the menu, they're now working on having the um, sort of for people with visual impairment, the touch, so they can actually touch and understand the menu. There's a lot you can do if you want to, and there's a lot you can do in your business that will make you very different. You know, there's a coffee shop near my office that only employs people with disability because of the conversation I had with him. So he's done a massive shift into their approach and said, let's be unique. Every coffee shop is out there. There's not many that have people with disability specifically working in it. Let's do that. It's working because I can tell you, I only drink my coffee there in the morning. Right? Because I want to support. Now, is it because people with disability particularly working there, so I would only go there and wouldn't go to others? Not at all. But I like the initiative. Be an inclusive business, and the community will support you. Not because you only have people with disability or just because you have disability, but because you have welcomed and opened your arms to Australia as a country with the whole community as a whole. So we're all one community, and we all contribute equally. And in return, I want to support you. It's the same concept of shop local or all these concepts that support your local community or support. It's the one, correct? And it's the same for people with disability. You're all one.
You're so inspiring, Yasser. We can all learn so much from you.
Thank you, Robert. I
Really
only
are.
play a small part that someone at a point of time played that part in me, changed me, and I'm hoping that I can just contribute in my journey to that. If one business just opens their mind to that, I'm already 10 times ahead.
Yeah. And I believe through this podcast, I think people will really open their mind. I mean, that's including me as well, because I think we have to focus on the ability. Success of a business depend on the ability of the team. It's not depend on how it looks, how it feel, how it smell, or nothing like that. And I think a clarity of purpose of an organization matching with the capability of the people without any discrimination will bring the business to the next level. I just love how simple you put it, like that.
Yeah. And we don't have much time left, but I've just got one question that I wanted to ask just for all those that are listening and they're still not sure they want to do it. Maybe they're thinking, we're a small business. Let's leave it for the larger businesses out there who have the time and the resources and, they should worry about this. What would be a message that you would have for them about the importance of not just leaving this for large businesses, but it needs to be addressed by small and medium businesses, this inclusivity and diversification?
Look, in essence, large businesses have strategists and operation managers that build strategy, the other one implements it. They very aware of how to improve, right? So they generally would have some sort of an inclusive approach. It's the small businesses that will actually, in my opinion, will benefit a lot more from that inclusivity. Right? You're opening your market to a much broader community. Think about it. I mean, even with local MPs, when I talk to them, I say, people with disability are a voting power. Support them, help them, and they do. A lot of them do, and it's the same for business. Support the guys. You'll support your business. It's that simple. You know, people with disability are a very, very strong power. Don't underestimate it. They contribute. They give back to our community as equally. So why don't you open? I really don't get it. Like I'm not saying put a lot of money into it or it's too difficult. It's a small adjustment that you invest in your business. This is a business investment. It will grow your business. It will shape you differently, and and if all the research says impact investment is 10 times stronger, it doubles your return. So why wouldn't you do it? And you do it at a small scale if you're a small business, it's fine. But welcome it. Even the food you offer, it's similar when you diverse your food. You have gluten-free, you have lactose-free. Why do you do that? Because you're trying to target an audience that otherwise wouldn't come and eat at your place. So you start catering for them, vegetarian, vegan, all these different things is because we're one community with different feels and looks and skills. And the more you cater for different communities, the more clients you get, right? It is the same. You just have to open another door, you know. It's the same concept in my opinion. And I think a business that is not doing that, they're just gonna fall behind because every day passes and with folks like myself and others that I know they're out there advocating for people's disability, people are gonna be aware more and get inclusive, and you're gonna miss the boat. You're gonna fall behind, and when you fall behind, it's a lot harder to catch up. Why don't you be a leader and start leading into that?
It's a brilliant message. And Gus, I'm going to hand it over to you to wrap up because we're out of time, but it's beautiful message, Yasser.
Thank you, Natalie. Yes, so thank you so much for donating your time for our leader talk. Your topic certainly bring a lot of emotion, and I'm sure it will bring a lot of emotion to our listener as well, because whether we like it or not, whether we want to focus or not, the world is actually being inclusive because everyone live in the same world. These are the 4 things that I take from the start. You started the conversation by saying the world moves so fast. An ability for a business or a leader to analyze risk often and to diverse their business, whether it's through diversity of offering of service on or including diversity of capturing capability through different streams. Because if your business is in the focus of painting, for example, that you put, and there is someone that can paint so well, regardless whether they are disabled or not, you should start looking at that. Will create a stream of success. Planning is a key to success. You give an example that at TLC, you actually start planning about impact of diseases well before the pandemic happened. And that actually creating differences to the extent now you have a stream of business selling feta cheese where all the people included supply chain are all from the community of disability. I now, since you mentioned UAE, call it people with determination. I actually want to call it that way. That create a differences again. To stop looking at disability and focus on ability. I think throughout the last 1 hour, I think I really, really love the fact that you say that. Stop looking at disability, focus on ability. Now, this is actually go deeper in business. Whether you have disability or not, focusing on capability of a person instead of talking about someone's weakness will only grow everyone. We are living in the world where we focus on weaknesses. Stop judging the capability of a fish to fly. Like, a fish meant to swim, not fly. So if we start focusing on the ability of fish to swim, then we have a very, very successful community. Determination is a key to success. And what you can find from this community, disability community, or if you want to call it people with determination, a high focus determination because they want to make a difference too, just like all of us. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, the time I ran out, but for anyone in our audience want to understand more, please contact Brainiact or Leader Talk, and we put you in touch with Yasser, CEO of TLC Disability Services. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's great to be here, and thank you for allowing me to pass the message that I strongly believe in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yasser. And thank you everyone for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiac.com.au. Thanks everyone. Bye.